Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Tech Motoring. On today's episode we're going to be going over my last 3 months of solar, that is July, August, and September of 2021. And with that we're going to see how well we did. Did our summer months actually produce a lot of electricity, or did we have a lot of rain and clouds during those summer months that maybe hurt our production? Well, we're going to be taking a look at that in just a minute, so don't you go anywhere because we are coming right back at you. Alright everybody, well welcome back. Well, here we are in the last half of 2021, and now that I've had solar for over a full year, July of 2020 is when it initially got turned on and producing. So now that we've gone a full year with it, are we still producing? Are we still getting a lot of money out of this? And we're going to go over the whole year of 2021 in a full review towards the beginning of next year when I have all the month's statistics for January through December. And right now we are going over the last 3 months as I do this every quarter. So I've already done an episode of January, February, March. I've done an episode of April, May, and June. And of course now we are doing June, July, and August. And now that we've gotten these 3 decent months under our belt, how well did we do? Did we produce more than what was estimated by the solar company? And is it really still worth having solar on our roof? So here we are, we're looking at the energy produced. Now this is just the total energy that we produced from the solar panels of these months. Now you can see right here that July is from July 7th to 8/3. So I'm taking these numbers off the electricity company's billing cycle. So I didn't want to go outside of the billing cycle and do, July 1st to July 31st because you never know if there's going to be some weird, things offset by that. So I'm actually using the billing cycle from my electricity company. So that's why you might see these numbers a little bit weird as they're starting later in the month and then they're sometimes ending into the early part of the following month. But anyway, in this situation here, we see July 7th to August 3rd. Now, I believe that's about 28 days or so. And you can see that we produced 698 kilowatt hours. Not too bad. I actually thought it was going to be a little bit more for July, but then again, weather patterns, everything changes. Sometimes we get some rain and clouds for a few days, and that's all it takes. Really, if you have one cloudy day, that can actually eat up about 20 kilowatt hours worth of energy. Going into August, which is August 4th to September 2nd, we see we produced 703 kilowatt hours. So we actually produced a little bit more than July. Then again, this has probably an extra day or so in it versus the July month billing cycle. But you can see that we produced a little bit more. And keep in mind that the days are starting to get shorter at this point. Once we hit that peak at the 3rd week of June, the days are getting shorter. So really, June should be the most productive month as far as daylight hours available. But as we start to move into July, August, September, we're going to start losing those daylight hours just a little bit more every single day. And then, of course, for September, we had 753. Couple extra days in that billing cycle there, but significant. Probably had 2 days, maybe 3 days of a little bit more sun than the previous months, which is why we had the extra kilowatt hour production. So you can see for the total of those 3 months, we produced 2,154 kilowatt hours of energy. And now that seems like a lot. And to give you an idea, our Hyundai Ioniq electric vehicle that we have has a 28 kilowatt hour usable battery. So that would be the equivalent of filling that car up from empty to full about 77 times over the course of a month. So it just kind of goes to show you that it does add up to a lot of energy. You can refill a car 77 times over the course of that month just from a little bit of producing of energy that's on your roof from solar panels. So that does save you a little bit of money. So let's move on to the next. Now this is the amount of energy used. So now this is the amount of energy that we actually ended up using. This is after solar production and everything for the month of July, August, and September. And as we can see, in the month of July, we used 442. July is a very hot month here. We used a lot of air conditioning. 442 kilowatt hours of energy is not too bad. A lot of people use closer to 1,000, sometimes even a little bit more in the month of July around here, especially if you run your air conditioning at a little bit lower temperature. And in August, you see we used about 533. Once again, August, very hot month. We used our air conditioning quite a bit. Even at nighttime, it runs quite a bit. Moving in September, now you can see that September is significantly less. Now, yes, the weather is a little bit more milder here, but we were actually gone for about 10 days in September. We actually road tripped the Hyundai Ioniq that I was previously mentioning. Actually, I'll put a link up here for you so you can take a look if you're interested in how we road tripped that Ioniq with the small battery pack from here in South Carolina all the way up to New Jersey. And in total for those 3 months is about 1,343 kilowatt hours of energy. Really not bad. As you can see, we used a significant amount less energy than we actually produced. Of course, keep in mind that we used some of that produced energy in real time, which we'll go into further right now. So now this is the amount of energy that we ended up sending back to the electricity company and getting a credit, which for us is about 1/3 of the cost of an actual kilowatt hour. So we sent back in July 272 kilowatt hours. In August, you can see we produced 243 kilowatt hours, which, once again, we use the air conditioning quite a bit. And I have my Nest thermostats specifically where they run during the day, so this way the house stays nice and cool. And then this way, when I get home, the house is already cool, and then it could start to bump up the temperature to, even out after the sun starts going down. And then what we notice with this is because if you have a Nest thermostat and you notice that it normally runs based on your schedule when you're home and when you're not. So if you're not home during the day, it's going to adjust that temperature up higher because you're not using it. And by the time you get home and it kicks back on again, it's going to need to use a lot of electricity to get from where it was kind of in this eco mode way of when you're away to get itself back down. But by that time, it's the end of the day, the sun's already going down, and now you've lost the ability to produce as much electricity, and therefore you're now paying for it out of your pocket as opposed to just taking it from the solar on your roof. And once again, since you send it back at 1/3 of the cost of what they charge you for a kilowatt hour, you might as well just use it instead of losing it at that point. Looking at September, we sent back 415 kilowatt hours, which makes sense because roughly 10 days of that month we were out on the road, so we didn't really have thermostats set too much during the day since we weren't coming home to a house anyway, so we ended up sending back a lot of electricity during that 10 days that we weren't here, which is fine. It gives us a little bit of a credit on our bill that helps out paying for it a little bit easier. And now we move on to our total, which is 930 kilowatt hours of energy sent back. So if you do that math, when we look at before, we actually produced 2,154 kilowatt hours and we sent back 930. That's significant. We send back, that's, what is that, about 45% of our energy we send back out of all the energy we produced. We could probably really benefit from having a home battery that would be able to harness this energy when we're not around, and then at nighttime when we're home and we need it, we could just redistribute that energy back from the battery into our home, and that would give us a pretty significant savings on our electricity bill every single month. But you got to make sure you do those calculations to make sure that the home battery is actually right for you, because keep in mind that it's a big investment to put a battery in your house, and then there's only a lifespan of maybe 10, 12 years depending on your battery for your house. Then you have to make sure that you can actually produce enough electricity to refill that battery every single day, and then have to redistribute that power back out from your batteries every single night. So you have to make sure that you don't use too much electricity at night to deplete your batteries too far, because if your panels can't actually reproduce enough on a daily cycle, you're going to end up having a battery that can never get fully back charged. Of course, this is even worse during winter time when you need to run your heat for a significant portion of the night, and then on top of that, the days are so short that you end up not producing enough electricity to refill those batteries. So you have to make sure you do your calculations to verify that a home battery would actually work well for you in those circumstances. But anyway, let's move on to the next slide. Now, you may have remembered that in the past videos I've done of the Q1 and Q2, I've had cost comparisons between 2020 and 2021. Now, of course, we didn't have solar until July of 2020, so the first 6 months of that year, we actually just were off of our regular grid energy and energy costs at that point. So doing a comparison doesn't really make much sense here. However, I'm going to throw this out here so you could take a look at it. We'll go over it real quick so you can see the difference between last year, when we had solar and this year as we have solar. And we could see right off the bat that, July of last year was more expensive of a bill than it was this year. And that's for one really good reason. We had the solar panels finally up and running at about the second week of July. So we actually lost about 1/4 of the month last year before we actually started producing, which is why that bill was a little bit higher. Plus, I think there might have been like an extra surcharge or something in there as well that for the initial first month there might have been like a rollover surcharge or something. So that's why that is probably a little bit higher than it really needed to be, but that's why this is not a great comparison. August, as you can see, we spent a lot more money this year in August, and that was probably just due to the weather. We've had a very hot year. Right now it is mid-October as I'm filming this, and it is over 80 degrees outside in mid-October. I mean, it's beautiful weather, but it is still very, very much warmer than it has been in previous years. So this also makes a big difference as well. And then in September, you could see that, our bill was cheaper. And once again, going back to the fact that we were out of the state for about 10 days, that is why our bill was cheaper. And really not much more cheaper either, $6, which is, really not that much. Anyway, let's move on to the next slide. All right, and this is my favorite slide because this actually shows you your actual production versus what they estimate based when you first get your solar. So we'll go over this again. When you first get your solar panels, or when you first get an estimate on solar panels, they're going to give you a sheet that's going to give you, this is your estimates based on where your house is located, the type of panels you have, which way you're facing with those panels. It's going to be a calculation of all this, and they're going to show you that this is going to be your average low, your average medium, and your average high on these months based off of all those calculations. And I love using this because this kind of gives you an idea of whether or not what they tell you is truth or what they tell you is exaggerated. And actually the last 6 months have been almost spot on. And I like taking an average of 3 months, not just every month individually, because obviously things change month to month. But I like to take a 3-month look at all of these. So let's take a look at what we produced for July, August, September, and then see how close we were to those estimates. And then let's look at what the full 3 months looked like in this graph. So here we can see July. Now, in blue is the estimate, and in orange is the actual. So in July, you see we were supposed to produce about 741, only produced about 698. Once again, keep in mind that these dates are actually a little bit slightly off as well from, they, do a full month basis of, July 1st to July 31st, whereas I'm doing a basis of, whenever my, bill cycle comes through. So that's why these might be a little bit off, but it still gives us the 3-month average regardless. So July would be 741 kilowatt hours of estimated production, and we only had about 698, so we were a little bit shy of that month. In August, we estimated it was going to be about 709, and we only produced 703. And then September, they estimated that we were going to produce about 537, and we produced 753 kilowatt hours in that month. I mean, that's an over 200 kilowatt hour difference between what they estimated and what we actually got, which is significant, which is good to see because you want to have more than that estimate, because that just means that whenever you calculate how long it's going to take for you to pay off your solar panels, based on your return of investment, when you sell back the electricity, and then you calculate all that in, you want to see more production than estimate. And as you can see, the total was 1,987 for the estimate for those 3 months, and we actually produced 2,154, which is great. We were producing more than what they estimate, and that's just money in the bank at that point. So as long as we continue this rate of being able to produce more than what they estimated, that's just going to make it easier in the long run to pay off these solar panels a little bit sooner than that. Well, everybody, I hope that helped you out. If you are a solar customer already and just needed something to compare to, or if you're interested in getting into solar and just wanted to know more about it, you should really check out my solar playlist. I'll go ahead and link that right up here. That gives you a step-by-step process from literally the day that I got my solar panels installed on my house, the process, the paperwork, everything that I went through, and all the numbers that are associated with it. And if you're interested, I highly recommend taking a look at that playlist and seeing all the stuff that I went through when I first did solar early 2020. We had put a roof on the house early 2020. I think it was about March. And then we immediately decided let's do solar right after that. No better time to do solar than right after you put a brand new roof on your house. So anyway, with that, I hope this helps you out. And I'd like to thank you very much for watching all of these. Now we're going to do one more of these quarter episodes, which will be for October, November, and December of this year. And then sometime early next year, I'm probably going to do a full 12-month overview of 2021 to see exactly how we produced, how much we produced, how much money we've saved, and what was our, estimate versus actual production, and how much money more did we save because our production was higher than our estimate. And we're going to go through all that stuff once we get to early next year. But anyway, I'd like to thank you very much for sticking around and watching this episode. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below if you could. Hit the thumbs up right next to that as well. You could check us out on our website, techmotoring.com, on Twitter @techmotoring, facebook.com/techmotoring. I'm going to thank you once again for watching today's episode. And remember, welcome to the future and welcome to Tech Motoring. And we'll see you all on the next episode.